Hey guys, coming another movie for you guys, and this movie reviewing, this is a movie that I watched way back on Thursday, but unfortunately I never got to review it to you guys till now because, as you guys know, I did have a shit ton of TV show reviews to do over the weekend. I honestly can't believe I did as many as I did. There were still some that I didn't do, such as The Americans and Arrow. Those will be coming throughout the week at some point. Doctor Who as well. Don't worry, I will definitely be catching up to those as well as Class. Don't worry about that. But without further ado, the movie I'm reviewing is the kickoff to the summer movie season. That, of course, being the big Marvel movie that usually starts things out. That being Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I was obviously very much looking forward to this movie because, one, I love the original Guardians of the Galaxy. I think it is probably Marvel's biggest unexpected hit. I mean, I remember when I saw the trailer of that film, I'm like, I don't really know about this. It looks really weird and different, but that's exactly what it was, and it really did embrace itself for that weirdness and difference, and that's something that I think worked very well. It's kind of like not the underdog, but it's just kind of like the oddball in the Marvel series. Like, you got all these other Marvel films, then you got Guardians, and it's just its own kind of thing, and that's something that I really did love about the first Guardians, and thankfully I actually did get to see a double feature of both of these, which I know you guys don't care about that, but it actually really did remind me of a lot of things I loved about the first Guardians, and I'm happy to say that after watching Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, this is a really great sequel. I overall really did enjoy this movie. It is way better than most people are making it out to be, and honestly, I do think it is one of Marvel's stronger sequels. But let's get to the plot of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. The plot, just like the first one, is pretty simple, although it is a little bit more complex than the first one. Basically, after the events of the first one, the Guardians, it actually takes place like just a few months after the first one, even though it feels like they've been a team for months and months and months. It only takes place a few months after. Basically, they are now all together, you know, they're taking down enemies and things like that, and one day there's this spaceship that just kind of arrives out of nowhere, and in it is Peter Quill's supposed father, Ego, who has now returned, and basically, Peter has to decide if he really wants to let his father back into his life. He has to catch up with his father, and things like that, and we got a lot of other little stories going on, but that is the basic plot of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 overall. But now let's get to the film overall, starting off with the cast. Absolute highlights of the first Guardians of the Galaxy was the cast. I think everyone really gave an incredible performance in that film. Just, they really did get deep into these characters, and this film, I think they were even better, honestly. They were all really given a lot more to do here, particularly Chris Pratt as Peter Quill, which, I mean, you could very well say that 2014 was very much his comeback year between that and the Lego Movie. That was really the year when people were like, oh, you know, Chris Pratt, he's a really fun, charismatic actor, and sure, he definitely is here. He still has a lot of great one-liners and stuff like that, but this movie gets a lot deeper into his overall character, what he's really dealing with, especially the fact that he does have two fathers, you know, one being his actual father, Ego, and then sort of like his, you know, his actual father, you know, the one who's raised him all his life, of course, that being Yondu, and he's very conflicted as to where he really is, who his real father really is, and what path he really wants to choose. A lot of times, Ego, he brings up a lot of really good points, but is he really willing to put aside his whole life and just go with Ego? And then, of course, there's Yondu, who, Yondu, as we know, was very demanding in the last film, and he has kind of abducted him, but he does look to him as a real father, and he has a lot of great, powerful, emotional moments here. I thought Chris Pratt did a really great job of what he had here, especially towards the third act of the movie. There are some huge revelations that come out, and I thought he really did a great job. It never really seemed like he was being too over the top. But what I love the most about Star-Lord in this film is that they do remember that he is just, you know, a quirky guy sometimes, that he is allowed to have some really fun and ridiculous references, and they do that in this film. I thought overall he was definitely very entertaining, but like I said, a little bit more emotional and dramatic than the first one. I thought overall those two tones blended very nicely in this film. And then Zoe Saldana as Gamora, again, she's also given more to do here, mainly because Nebula is featured much more prominently in this film. And when I mean it, it's kind of like she's almost part of the Guardians. Like, she really is a big part of this, and there's a huge rivalry going on between Gamora and Nebula, and they really do explore more of Nebula and Gamora's relationship and what's really going on there, but also between her and Peter. As we know, they seem to have some sort of a romantic thing in the first one, and that, you know, there's a will they, won't they question in here. And I thought overall she definitely did a really good job. I really liked her in the first one, but she was like the one cast member in the first one that really didn't have a lot to do. Well, that's really saved here because they give her a lot more to do, and I definitely really like what she had to do here. And then Drax in this film, Dave Bautista, is still fantastic as this character, and he by far is the funniest, mainly because his backstory is the most developed in the first one. You know, they don't really give him more to do here, but he has some of the funniest stuff to do in here, particularly a subplot involving the character Mantis, who actually is working with Ego. I really loved him here. He was absolutely hilarious, and I really loved a lot of his lines here. I mean, just his really sardonic, blunt type attitude really does complement him nicely here, and that's something that I've always really liked about Drax as a character. And if you didn't like Drax in the first movie, this movie, you'll probably, you might not like him, you might still not like him, but he definitely has a lot more fun stuff to do here, especially now that he understands actual human conversation. He really does use that to his advantage, and I really did love what we got with him throughout this film. He was fantastic. Rocket Raccoon as well. I mean, Bradley Cooper was, I think, the highlight of the first film. He was just so great. He was, you know, such a fun, lovable character, and you just really loved watching him do all these sort of very risky type things, but you just loved watching him do all that, and, you know, watching him shoot a gun and all that kind of stuff, watching him rob banks. But this movie, he really is conflicted as to why he does do that. I mean, he does rob a lot of places, and he does steal a lot of things, and he doesn't really know how to stop himself. And I like the way the movie really did get deeper into that, particularly with Yondu. I thought overall he was definitely really great. I really like what Bradley Cooper did here, and I thought, again, he was given a lot of really good stuff to do. And then the only other person really talking before we get into the real standouts of this film is Vin Diesel as Baby Groot. This is a very different type of role for Groot because Groot was a lot more powerful in the first one. In this, he's reduced to the intelligence of a baby, but it doesn't become tiring. Like, I feel like in a lesser film, this could become very tiring, and you could definitely get annoyed by the fact that Groot is constantly a baby, but it actually works very well. It makes for some really nice lighthearted moments. The relationship between him and Rocket is very different, but they actually use it very well, and I really did like what they do with Baby Groot here. He was just a lot of fun to watch. However, out of everyone in this film, by far the best actor here is Michael Rooker as Yondu. And look, I liked Yondu in the first film. I didn't think he was terrible, but he wasn't the most interesting character. You know, he was kind of just there begging Star-Lord for things like, oh, you know, I need the stone, I need this, I need that, and this film, we pick up, and he still is in that same place that he was in the first movie, and he really is trying to get his life together. And the way they sort of redeem Yondu in this film, I thought was extremely well done. Michael Rooker has this incredible scene between him and Rocket where they really are comparing each other, and they realize how similar their pasts are, how similar their attitudes are, and it was just really well done, especially where he goes towards the end of this movie. It's surprisingly very emotional. It's amazing what they do with a character that really no one really cared about in the first movie, and they really turned him around in every way possible to the point where he probably is the best character in this movie, and in my opinion has the most solid arc out of everyone. I absolutely loved what they do with Yondu here. He was absolutely fantastic, and where they take him towards the end of the film is definitely surprising, but it works surprisingly just as well as I really thought it could have initially. Like, initially, I didn't really care much about Yondu, but I cared so much more about him here. He was great, and I was very happy with the way his performance turned out. Let's talk about Kurt Russell as Ego, because this is a character that I'm sure we were all really anticipating in the first one, especially after watching the double feature when they said, oh, you know, your father's from something else, he's not from Earth. He is, in fact, a living planet, we find out in this movie, and he very much does, I guess, do a good job with that. Ego in general is not is definitely a compelling character. He has a lot of expository dialogue, and for the most part, Kurt Russell does a good job with it. You know, he is a charismatic guy, and he just does a really good job with these long monologues that they give him, and there's some really nice bonding between him and Star-Lord, but I'm not gonna lie, the direction they take his character is exactly where I thought he was gonna go in this movie. Now, they do make up for it with a much bigger surprise that I had no idea about, but the really big revelation, like I said, I didn't know about, but the main, like, twist with him is exactly the direction I thought they were gonna go with him, so it wasn't too surprising, but I did think Kurt Russell did a good job what he had, and then the actress who played, Mantis, I also thought was really good. Nebula in this film, I thought she was okay, but I just don't really have much to say about that character. I thought that, the actress who plays her, I can't think of her name right now, but she was overdoing it a little bit. I wasn't a huge fan of her. But as a whole, I definitely really liked the caster. I thought everyone really did a fantastic job. Like I said, except for the actress who really plays Nebula, just not a huge fan of her. Other than that, I really did love everyone here. I thought they all really worked well together. And this team, now that's established, they can do a lot more with these roles. And they really do a fantastic job with, you know, interplay and different things like that. And that's something that I thought they just used very well in this film. It's just very fun to watch these characters, and these actors do a fantastic job playing them. So now let's get to the directing and the screenplay, because once again, this film is directed by James Gunn, and I feel like this is one of the first times that's happened in a Marvel film where the original and the sequel is directed by the same people. That's not true. You know, that's not exactly true, because we know the Russo brothers directed both Captain America, the Winter Soldier, and Civil War. That did in fact happen. I'm talking about a trend where you have an original film and a sequel. I don't really remember many times when that's happened, and James Gunn could have easily, I think, repeated the first film, and a lot of people thought that's what he was going to do here. Like, he was just going to capitalize on the success of the first film and just kind of do the same quirky type of plots and just make a fun film like the first one was, and he definitely does do that because this is still a very entertaining film, but he did a very smart thing in making this much more of a character-driven film. Sure, the plot's important, but the characters are really what make this movie, and a lot of the social dilemmas that they're going through really makes us care about them even more than the first movie. Look, I cared about Rocket Raccoon. I cared about Peter Quill. But at the end of the day, was I really concerned about their safety? Was I really worried about a lot of things they were going through? No, because I was just having a fun time with that movie. And sure, I was with this, but after this movie, there are a lot more thought-provoking things that these characters go through. And it really makes you feel for them a lot more than you probably did in the first movie. And the way they did that here, I thought was incredibly well done. I really like what James Gunn decided to do, fleshing out these characters more, giving them more emotional center, and really getting in why these characters are the way they are. I thought that was something that he just did really, really well here. And the dramatic stuff, I think, could have come off as very forced and unearned. Like, oh, he's just going darker because it's the sequel and he needs to go darker, and that's what all Marvel movies do. But it actually was earned. I thought it made a lot of sense for him to go darker. I thought that definitely was the right thing to do, and I was very happy with the way that definitely did play out. Now, just because the film is darker and because the film is more character-driven does not mean the film is better. There are definitely some significant issues, and that definitely goes into the screenplay. Now, look, the screenplay was not terrible. I don't think the screenplay is bad at all. In fact, it's overall a really well-done screenplay, but it definitely is a lot choppier. And all the complaints people have had regarding the screenplay, I completely understand, because I'm not going to lie, the screenplay, it sometimes feels like two different movies, because we do kind of have two, there is a large period of time, in this movie, where the Guardians are in fact divided. It's not really the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, it's more like Guardians across the scattered across the galaxy. Like, that's more of what this film is. Throughout most of this film, you got Star-Lord, Gamora, and Ego on one planet, and you got Rockets, and Drax is there too, and you got Rockets and Yondu and Baby Groot doing their own thing. So they're kind of scattered throughout the film, and it does work because, again, you get some really great moments between Rocket and Yondu, and you get some really good stuff between Drax and Mantis and things like that. Those bonds are just a lot of fun to watch, and there's a lot that comes with that, definitely, and I thought they definitely utilized those two relationships very well, but because of that, there isn't as much, like I said, the film is a little bit choppier because of that, and there are some sections where you do kind of feel like you are watching two different movies, but it wasn't a thing where it would, like, cut back and I had a problem with it. Like, it was never like, oh, we gotta go to Yondu and Rocket, because no, those are some of, like, the highlight scenes of the film are those scenes, and then when we would cut back to Star-Lord, Gamora, and Ego, I was completely fine with that too, because I definitely was invested in both plots throughout the film. It's just I did feel that some sections of the film were choppier than others. It eventually does fix that once we get to the second and third act, but the first act, yes, is definitely very choppy, and that was something I definitely did notice. But I did think the story overall was definitely very interesting. I really did like the way the movie is telling the story about fathers and what it really means to be a father, how maybe you have a real father, but your actual father is not your real father. Just that whole story I thought was very well handled. I thought the movie actually had handled the emotional stuff very, very well. And like I said, it didn't come across as forced, and that's something that was just very smart to do, definitely. I mean, these are characters who we look at as just silly and just fun to watch, and it makes sense why they decided to flesh them out a bit more, because they are in fact Marvel characters and you want to care about them, especially because we know we're going to see them in Infinity War at some point. So we want, when these characters are in danger, we want to be on the edge of our seat, you know, clenching our teeth, hoping that they'll survive, and thankfully, they do a great job with that. I will also say, I personally think this movie is actually a lot funnier than the first one. I was laughing a lot more consistently. Not that the first one wasn't funny, but the laughs in that movie were very, not sporadic, but it was kind of like one joke per scene. This movie, the jokes just keep coming. Like, the jokes don't stop throughout this film, and I love that. I loved all the jokes throughout here. There are so many quotable lines and so many things that I don't want to give away. Like, I could say some lines to you, but I just don't want to give them away. But there were so many things that I was cracking up at. A lot more references this time, and I really did love a lot of the jokes here. And thankfully, it doesn't all come from Star-Lord and Rocket. Like I said, a lot of it actually does come from Drax and his relation with Mantis, because Mantis is kind of like Drax, where she doesn't pick up on social conversation. She doesn't really understand the way that works, and the way that Drax would kind of tease her about that, I just thought was a lot of fun to watch, and I definitely really did love the laughs throughout this film. The cinematography as well is just gorgeous to look at. It's amazing how these films, it seems like every Marvel film, the cinematography just gets better and better and better. Now, I wouldn't say this is on the level of, like, Doctor Strange, but it definitely is very well done. I think it definitely is better than the first one, a lot clearer, it's a lot more colorful, and it's just really fun to look like. It's one of those films where you can't take your eyes off the screen, and I thought they did that perfectly. I really did love the cinematography here. That was something that was extremely well done. And the score. A lot of people are saying the score is not as memorable as the first one, and yeah, I mean, no, there are not as many songs as there were in the first one. They use a lot of the same songs in this movie, but the scenes where they use those songs are very memorable, particularly a scene involving Yondu and Rocket where they use a song to distract some guards. That scene is incredible. I love the way that was handled. They also used Fleetwood Mac's The Chain pretty well. I really did love the songs throughout this film. The songs are a big part of this, as well as we know, definitely, you know, the Walkman is part of Star-Lord's story, and even more so in this one. There's a big part of why he does use that Walkman. We know, obviously, it is for his mother, but we get a lot more in depth with what that Walkman is specifically, and more of, like, part of, you know, his past and things like that, and I thought that was definitely very well handled. Like I said, the editing is definitely very choppy, but while the editing was choppy, it didn't really deteriorate my overall enjoyment of the film overall. But now, guys, I've gotten into everything technical. Now it is time to get into spoilers, which we're talking major spoilers here. If you guys have not seen Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, do not watch the rest of this review. I'm sure most of you definitely did see it this weekend. I meant to review this back on Thursday, but unfortunately, I couldn't review it till now. But if you haven't seen Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, do not watch the rest of the review. I'm going to get into major spoiler territory now, so let's just get right into it. First of all, the main reveal with Ego, I saw coming the second that he landed on the planet. The second he was there, I'm like, he's not a good guy. There's no way that it's going to go this perfectly, that he's going to go with his father, and that his father's going to join the team. It just didn't seem like it was going to be wrapped up that well. Like, that just seems too neat of an ending to have. It doesn't seem like that's where it was going to go, and especially because the gold people did not seem like that convincing of a villain. Like, yeah, they were in the film, and they were kind of there to be an antagonist, but they just didn't really provide anything that big. So when it was revealed that Ego was the villain, I saw that come from a mile away. However, what I didn't see coming was the bigger reveal, when Ego, we find out, wasn't just a villain, but that he actually is the reason why Star-Lord's mother has cancer. That was extremely shocking. I had no idea that was coming. My jaw was on the floor at that point. What a good twist that was, because not only does this recontextualize everything that we've known about Star-Lord, you know, who all his life has wanted to know about his father, why he abandoned him. At this point, we thought, oh, maybe he's on his side. We realize he's kind of like controlling Star-Lord, but not just that, that he actually, you know, did this as a way to impregnate all of these women that they didn't really mean anything to him, and he gives us some more of a reason for Star-Lord to go up against Ego, because we know obviously Ego was going to be the villain, but this gives Star-Lord more of a reason to want to go up against him, and it gives Star-Lord more, just in general, a lot more pathos, and I thought that was just extremely well done. The scene where those two do eventually fight, sure, there were definitely some things, we didn't need the whole, oh, sorry, you know, you know, you shouldn't have killed my mother. We didn't really need that line, because we knew Star-Lord was definitely feeling that, but I thought that was a really well done twist overall. And then the ending, where Yondu, we think, is going to be part of the Guardians. You know, we think that's where that's going to go. But honestly, I saw Yondu dying. Like, I had a feeling Yondu was going to die. And at first, I was going to complain. Like, I thought Yondu was going to die. That scene where we saw Ego, he was about to kill all the Guardians, I thought Yondu was going to die in that scene. Like, that was going to be it for him. However, the way he died, I thought was a lot better, where he basically died by choice, because he served his purpose, and Star-Lord just simply didn't need him anymore. But that he realized in that moment, Yondu is his real father. Even though Ego is biologically his father, Yondu is actually his real father. Yondu is the person that he was always, you know, closer to, who has helped him throughout his life, who has made him into the man he really is, and I thought they touched upon that perfectly. The scene with Yondu's funeral, I'm not gonna lie, I definitely did get a little emotional. I didn't cry or anything, but I was definitely on the verge. I mean, it was an extremely well done scene. I was surprised by how emotional the ending really did get, but that was extremely well done. I love the way they handled that. And then let's talk about the 5 post-credit scenes. I'm gonna be honest, I don't think the film needed 5 of them. A few of them just felt like they were just kind of there for shits and giggles, like Teenage Groot, yeah, that was funny. Seeing Star-Lord kind of be a father to Groot and discipline him, I thought that was pretty funny, definitely. The one joke we got with Sylvester Stallone's character, I thought that was funny as well. I'm interested in seeing where Sylvester Stallone's going to go now, because we know that those, his team is actually now going to team up together, so we'll have to see where that's going to go. The one that was the most interesting to me was the Gold People. We see the Gold People, and basically they want to, they're creating this, like, AI named Adam. We don't really know what that's about, but it's clear that they want some sort of revenge. We're definitely going to see them again, and I'm glad they're doing that, actually, because the Gold People in this film, I didn't really think much of them. They were just kind of disposable villains, and I think this film, it's going to give them a much larger, the next film is going to give them a much larger purpose, so I'm definitely interested in seeing really where they're going to go from here, and I thought that was definitely very solid overall. A lot of the stuff that happened in this movie, like I said, I did kind of see coming, but not exactly in the way it was done. I think that overall did make the the stuff that was shocking a lot more, and the payoff in general, a lot better than it really could have been. So, overall, guys, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, while I don't think it's as good as the first one, is still a very enjoyable, entertaining film. I really did enjoy it overall. So, like I said, it's a lot more emotional than the first one. I think the laughs are more consistent. The characters have a lot more to do. It really does have everything you could want in a Guardians sequel. Like I said, I don't think it's quite as good only because of the pacing and things like that. That stuff kind of does denote the sequel a bit. Other than that, I definitely did enjoy it a lot more than critics are saying, and I am overall going to give Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 a 4 out of 5 or a B+. Because when it comes down to, guys, I am satisfied. I was overall very satisfied by this film. I really did love the way that pretty much everything played out. Even if some stuff was a little bit choppy, I thought the overall scenes were definitely well constructed, and they did a really good job with giving some characters that we maybe didn't really think much of and make them a lot more likable and a lot better than they originally were. I thought that was something this film just did very, very well. So overall, guys, my review, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I'm sorry this review is so late. That was not my intention. It just kind of turned out that way. But that's my review. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you guys thought of this movie overall. Left your thoughts in it. Overall, like I said, was overall satisfied with the way this turned out. I thought this was a really great way to kick off the summer, especially because the summer does look kind of shitty. Hopefully, it's not. Maybe this is a sign that the summer is going to be kind of strong, but we'll have to see. But I will see you guys in my next video. Thank you for watching all these videos. Sorry that I haven't been uploading a lot, but like I said, now that I've gotten basically all the reviews out, my reviews will be a lot more consistent from here on out throughout the week. But that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. We'll see you guys in my next video, which will be for tonight's episode of The Leftovers, which you guys know I am pumped for, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye. One more thing, guys, before I end this review, I just want to give a shout out to 22 Tiger Dude, aka Tony Estrada. He's been on my channel a couple times, as you guys know, but he actually made that movie review intro for me because he watched my videos and saw that they just kind of start abruptly, and he's like, hey man, why don't you do a movie review intro? And he actually decided to make it for me, so thank you again for that. I definitely do appreciate it. That intro you're going to see in basically every movie review now, but if you guys haven't, definitely subscribe to his channel. He's a really cool dude, and he definitely is one of the kindest and most thoughtful people out there, so definitely thank you to him.